Most people think of work as something that happens outside the home. But if you break down the roles of a mother, childcare provider, nurse, teacher, project manager, emotional regulator, household operations director, those roles would require multiple full time employees in any organization. Instead, we expect one person to do all of it, unpaid, and then ask why she's exhausted. This isn't a domestic issue, it's the blueprint modern work was built on. We live in systems that expect one thing above all else: consistency. The same energy, the same output, the same availability, day after day, year after year. And when people fail to meet that expectation, we don't question the system. We question the person. Burnout, disengagement, lack of resilience. These are the labels we use when someone can no longer keep pace with demands that never slow down. For a long time, I believed this was a personal problem, a mindset problem, a grit problem. But as I moved deeper into industrial and organizational psychology, a different pattern became impossible to ignore. See, women are not burning out because they are weaker or less committed. They are burning out because most modern work systems are built on false assumption that human capacity is linear. You see, linear work systems are designed around uninterrupted availability, uniform performance benchmarks, and constant upward output. These assumptions are treated as neutral, and they are not. These systems reward people who can perform without visible fluctuation. They punish variation even when that variation is predictable, biological, and inevitable. Women's bodies and lives are shaped by cyclical and life stage realities: menstrual cycles, pregnancy, postpartum recovery, caregiving, menopause, and identity transitions across the lifespan. These realities do not disappear when someone clocks in. Instead of adapting systems to human realities, organizations demand that people compress themselves to fit the system. And that compression comes at a measurable cost. See, when women become mothers, they experience a documented penalty in hiring, promotion, pay, and perceived competence, even when their performance does not decline. This is known as the motherhood penalty. Mothers are often seen as less committed and less capable, while fathers are viewed as more stable and promotable. This is not anecdotal, it is structural. Leadership expectations intensify the problem. Role congruity theory explains that women are evaluated against contradictory standards. When women lead with authority, they are judged as abrasive. When they lead with care, they are judged as weak. Either way, they are perceived as misaligned with leadership norms they did not design. This double bind is not a personality issue, it is a systems problem. What organizations label as inconsistency is often adaptation. What they label as weakness is often capacity in motion. But linear systems don't have language for this. So instead of redesigning work, they individualize failure. Burnout becomes a personal flaw instead of an organizational outcome. Burnout is not random. It is not a vague feeling or a lack of motivation. It is a measurable psychological syndrome characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced efficacy. Burnout emerges when there is chronic mismatch between people and the systems they work within. Research shows burnout is driven by misalignment in workload, control, reward, fairness, and values, not by individual weakness. When organizations ignore these mismatches, burnout becomes inevitable. The COVID-19 pandemic did not create this problem. It exposed it. Work and home collided. Caregiving demands intensified, boundaries collapsed, and yet the dominant response was still individual. Be resilient, be flexible, do more with less. At the same time, organizations elevated narratives of sacrifice and heroism. Workers were praised for endurance rather than protected from harm. But praise does not replace protection. Sociologist Arlie Hochschild described emotional labor as the management of feeling to meet organizational expectations. Decades later, it remains deeply gendered. Women are expected to absorb stress, regulate emotion, maintain cohesion, and stabilize teams, often without recognition or relief. When this labor is invisible, it becomes infinite. This is why leaders miss the problem, because the system still works for some people. Linear systems reward those who can perform without interruption. Those who benefit from the system are least likely to see its harm. This is not malice, it is structural blindness. But it does not have to stay that way. What if leadership was designed around human reality instead of constant extraction? Cycle-informed leadership begins with a simple premise. Variation is not failure. It is information. It recognizes embodied capital, physical, emotional, and cognitive states as assets that change over time. It incorporates cyclical and life stage logic, understanding that capacity is not static across the lifespan, and it demands structural alignment. Policies, evaluation systems, workloads, and timelines must reflect human rhythms, not punish them. Flexibility without structure is not empowerment, it is invisible overwork. This is not about lowering standards, it is about redefining what effective performance actually looks like. When systems align with human reality, performance becomes sustainable instead of extractive. Too often, organizations respond to strain by asking individuals to cope better. But motivation, engagement, and well-being depend on how work is structured, not how much people can endure. People perform best when they experience autonomy, competence, and connection. Cycle-informed leadership does not remove accountability. It changes what accountability measures. Evaluation shifts from constant output to outcome plus process. Work pacing becomes intentional. Reintegration after life disruptions is structured, not stigmatized. From an organizational ethics perspective, designing systems that ignore human limits is not neutral. It is a moral choice with predictable harm. Ethical leadership is not only about intent, it is about design. When work is designed only for uninterrupted capacity, women become the canary in the system. But they are not the only ones harmed. Caregivers, aging workers, trauma survivors, innovators, anyone whose life does not move in a straight line pays the cost. When work is redesigned for a cyclical reality, everyone benefits. Productivity stabilizes, trust increases, innovation returns. People stop surviving work and start contributing to it. So here's the invitation. If you are a leader, stop asking how to make people perform longer. Start asking how to design systems people can remain inside without breaking. If you are a policymaker, stop treating flexibility as an accommodation. Treat it as an infrastructure. And if you are someone who has been told that your exhaustion is a personal failure, know this: you are not broken. The system was never built for you. Women are not the problem work needs to solve. Work is the problem leadership needs to redesign. And when we do, we don't just reduce burnout, we build a more honest, resilient, and intelligent future of leadership. My name's Olivia, and it was a pleasure today. Thank you.